Is your old traditional wallet falling apart? You know, the one filled with old hotel door keys, business cards, and store cards that you probably also have on your keys anyway? Then maybe it's time to upgrade to a more durable, slim wallet that won't feel like you're keeping a softball in your back pocket. The Ridge offers their flagship carbon fiber, aluminum, or titanium wallet in over a dozen different styles, along with other quality products like bags and phone cases. If you want to check out the Ridge's products, which come with a lifetime warranty by the way, you can go to ridge.com/gilly and use the code GILLY for 10% off your order with free worldwide shipping. Link in the description. Growing up with an N64, I had a decent amount of games, but there were a few that I played more than any others. I loved so many N64 games, but a specific handful of them were staples of that generation for me, and even today I find myself going back and playing most of them. But let's face it, no matter how many times I can play the same game over and over, I still, in the back of my mind, wish there was more content for me to find in them. And that's where ROM hacking comes in. If you aren't aware by now, hacking or modding, in the simplest way I can explain it, is when someone takes a game and changes a bunch of stuff in it. It could be as simple as a graphical change or a complete overhaul of the entire game. Recently, I stumbled upon a hack for Ocarina of Time, and it sent me down a rabbit hole of hacks for each one of my favorite N64 games. Let's see what I found. I'm filming, what's up?
What's up? You're doing ROM hacks, man. That's very clearly ripping me off here. That's my thing. I do the ROM hacks.
Alright, first off, everyone already knows we're not actually on the phone. And second, look, you're either the Kirby guy or you're the ROM hack guy. You don't get to be both.
Fair enough.
So I wanted to make sure all these games were actually playable on real N64 hardware. So I did just that. Not to say I wouldn't cover a hack that would only run on an emulator, but the prospect of being able to play all these on real hardware was definitely a plus and kind of gives these things more legitimacy. So I dropped all these hacks onto a flash cart and played them all on a real N64. No emulation, and with a nice, crispy new Brawler 64 controller. Alright, so this first one is the game that made me want to make this video in the first place. The Legend of Zelda Dawn and Dusk, as I'm sure you can assume, is a ROM hack of Ocarina of Time. It's a pretty big overhaul, complete with its own story and a pretty nice looking intro cutscene, as well as a couple items unique to the mod. Well, that's not entirely true. They're just sort of model and palette swaps of the Hylian shield and Goron tunic, but I do love the purple tunic, and it's pretty nice being able to properly use a non-wooden shield as young Link. The mod is only a few hours long, but it's a pretty fun time. I wouldn't go as far as to say it feels as polished as something like an official release, but it's still decently enjoyable. Unlike vanilla Ocarina of Time, the game's entire overworld is basically a dungeon in and of itself, which I think is a pretty neat idea that breaks away from typical Zelda conventions. Navigating the overworld and gradually breaking more and more of it open is a pretty fun change of pace and definitely a unique approach to level design. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though, because I do have a few gripes. The colors chosen for pretty much everything are all muddy. Just splotches of dark browns and tans and forest greens. Nothing really pops out and it all just looks pretty dull. Also, I swear like half the puzzles in this game are just torch lighting ones, including the worst one in the entire game, which requires you to light a bunch of torches in sequence while sneaking around a bunch of guards. I personally hate stealth as it is, but the camera angles make this 10 times more difficult than it should be. My biggest issue though definitely has to be the final boss. It's just a palette swap of Volvagia, whatever, from Ocarina of Time, only made a billion times more difficult by making the stage way smaller than it has any right to be, making it way harder to avoid the dragon's fire breath and falling rocks, and throwing in a giant fiery hitbox in the center of the arena. Not to mention, half the time the boss spawns in an area that you can't easily attack it from, and you have to jump attack with the Megaton hammer to hopefully get a hit in. I died so many times trying to do this, and the worst part is every time you die, you respawn before the stealth section. So while you don't need to relight the torches, you do need to sneak around all the guards again just to make it back to the boss room. After like 10 tries, I realized the boss can be totally cheesed by hanging off the side of this platform whenever he flies around to attack you. This realization immediately turned the boss into a joke, but if the game wants to be cheap, so will I. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever played Mario Kart 64 and said to yourself, you know, I really like this game, but it would be a lot better if Goku was in it? Well, wish granted, I guess. Dragonball Kart is essentially just a reskin of Mario Kart 64, swapping almost everything Mario related out for Dragon Ball. You get to choose from any of these twitchy-faced knuckleheads, and of course, I went with Beerus because why wouldn't I? All the track layouts are exactly the same, but stage elements have been changed to include references to Dragon Ball. All the items have been swapped, and in pretty clever ways, I must admit. For example, they turned the blue shell into the Genki Dama, and turned mushrooms into Senzu. As I grabbed items, each and every one actually made a lot of sense to me. That is, until I grabbed an item box and it landed on this portrait of an Uzaru. And then immediately I was like, okay, what could they have possibly swapped for this? It's bananas. Well played. Also, they changed the Boo item to Yamcha, and that's pretty funny to me. Other than that though, it's all just Mario Kart with a Dragon Ball coat of paint. They didn't change any of the core game, and I think that's okay. I will, however, be docking points because they turned Rainbow Road into Road. I mean, come on, they could have made it Snake Way. That's so obvious. Why not? I'll add a few points back though, because when you slip and your cart loses control, it says balls. Also, if these little exploding Chaozus are referencing what I think they're referencing, this mod just won the whole video. Oh, this one's so cool. I've been wanting to try this one out ever since I first heard about it a few months back. If I had known the full scale of what this actually is, I would have played it a lot sooner than I did. It's called Banjo-Kazooie, the Bear Waker, and well, it's a mod of Banjo-Kazooie which takes place on Outset Island from The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. See, when I first heard about this hack, I was interested because I do love Banjo-Kazooie, but what I thought this was just a silly shoehorning of Outset Island into Banjo. Almost a tech demo of sorts that someone could build Outset inside Banjo-Kazooie, but that's not what this is. I mean, it is, but it's so much more than that. This is as good as any Banjo-Kazooie stage, and if I'm being honest, immediately more fun than anything I played in Banjo 2. The fact that Outset Island's layout lends itself so well to a collectathon is insane to me. All the note placements make sense, the secrets and puzzles are well crafted, and the whole island is just fun to explore and fits right in with any of the levels from the first Banjo game. I really sat there with a big stupid smile on my face the entire time because of how much this actually felt like an original Banjo stage. All the dialogue is well done and they actually did Kazooie's character justice. There were a couple places where I got stuck, but I will say if you have any issues with where to go in this one, really think back and remember everything about Outset Island's layout. It'll probably surprise you how closely they paid attention to detail. This is not a slop-together proof of concept. This is a fully fledged Banjo-Kazooie level with a surprisingly large amount of content that didn't get boring or stale for even a second. I think the only gripes I have are that some necessary items are scarce, so I'll just say this now, conserve your golden feathers, and the mod also lacks a proper ending. There is an ending for sure that wraps up the little self-contained story, but it doesn't actually end, or even have a short credit sequence. Once you've finished, you just kind of stay in the level. It's fine, but it's just a little anticlimactic. Anyway, this is incredible and you need to play it. So after getting a flash card for my N64, this was the first ROM hack I was told to play, and well, here we are. I've gotta say, I do respect the effort put in, but boy, do I hate this. Not the hack itself, but GoldenEye has not aged well as it is, and this mod pushes the N64 to its limits, as you can probably tell by the shaken, not stirred frame rate. So Goldfinger 64 is a complete overhaul of GoldenEye 007. Instead of playing through the events of GoldenEye, you play through the classic Bond film Goldfinger. And if you don't know anything about the Bond movies, just know that there's a bunch of new levels to play and you play as Sean Connery instead of Pierce Brosnan. They for some reason threw Oddjob into the original GoldenEye, and this is the movie he was actually from, so there's that. Now there's a ton of new missions and levels in here, but I only played one. See, I did intend to play more of this, but after I finally made it through the first stage, which I struggled through due to the frame rate making me want to vomit, I encountered a bug which completely negated the progress I had made and wanted me to start back from the first mission. Between the terrible frame rate, shoddy controls, and everything being dark and difficult to see, I wasn't willing to sink more time into this. To this game's credit, the first stage was actually pretty interesting, and its objectives call back to the facility stage from GoldenEye. So from what I can tell, there was a ton of effort put into this, but I personally couldn't keep going. There's a good chance maybe this is a better experience when played on an emulator, but judging by the way the game was running, I thought my N64 was gonna burst into flames. I, like many other people, played a lot of Super Smash Bros. When I was growing up, but even as a kid, I thought the roster was pretty lacking. Smash 64 had a pretty anemic selection of characters and stages, but luckily, a mod called Smash Remix has come to the rescue. Now, it didn't expand the roster, but rather changed it. Captain Falcon's been swapped out for Ganondorf, Fox for Falco, Mario for Dr. Mario, and Link for Young Link, although it really just looks like Adult Link but short. Now, it may not give us more characters to choose from, but switching up the roster definitely does make the game overall more refreshing. And these aren't just model swaps either. You can definitely tell that they're based on the original character, but their movesets have all been completely altered for each respective character. Even more refreshing to see are the inclusions of new stages, like literally triple the amount of stages. There's brand new ones that have never existed in the Smash universe before, as well as ports of newer stages like Smashville or Skyloft. And while I know other hacks have done this one also lets you select Final Destination or Battlefield. I know as a kid, I hated that I couldn't just play on Final Destination. This is definitely worth a try if you like Smash 64. So on the surface, this is just your regular old garden variety Super Mario 64. Except now, Mario's hat's got googly eyes. This hack is totally old news at this point, but it's too interesting to not talk about. This one puts Cappy from Super Mario Odyssey into Mario 64, and lets you take control of almost anything in the game, not just enemies. Sometimes with great success, sometimes not that. This is the kind of hack that I really find interesting. It's just an added mechanic. You can play through the entire game and never once use Cappy, but instead, you have this new weird mechanic that can be applied to situations you've been in 10,000 times before. Penguin lost her baby? No, I'm not a babysitter. Find your own mom. I need how many stars to get through this door? Nah, I think I'll be entering the stage now, thank you. Koopa the Quick! More like Koopa that stand here and do this while I steal the race, and also the flagpole. My guidance counselor never told me this was a viable way of dealing with bullies. I actually played this mod quite a bit longer than I intended to because I wanted to just see how many ways I could mess with the game. Each time I grabbed a star and gained access to more and more of the game, I was like, oh wait, well now I gotta make it to this level to see if I can do this. And this happened endlessly. Because there's so many possibilities of what you can manipulate with this, I had an endless torrent of, but what if I used Cappy on this? Thoughts in my head, which then in turn kept me playing. Now the cap jumping mechanic is programmed in, but it doesn't really work right. It completely halts your speed to throw Cappy, so it can't really be used as a proper platforming mechanic like in Odyssey. Overall, this is really fun to just mess around with and really reminds me a lot of things I used to do as a kid with a Game Shark to break games, like the levitation code for Ocarina or Majora or Banjo-Kazooie. Okay, wait, never mind. False alarm. You can't control Dory. This game's worthless. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it and want to see more, there's a couple other videos you can watch right there. And if you want to keep up with everything I release, subscribe and then tap the bell icon. I also have a Patreon right there if you want to help support the channel.